Insurance isn't one size fits all, and shopping for it shouldn't feel like squeezing into something that just doesn't fit. That's why drivers have enjoyed Progressive's Name Your Price tool for years. With the Name Your Price tool, you tell them what you want to pay, and they show you options that fit your budget. Enough hunting for discounts, trying to calculate rates, and tinkering with coverages. Maybe you're picking out your very first policy, or maybe you're just looking for something that works better for you and your family. Either way, they make it simple to see your options. No guesswork, no surprises. Ready to see how easy and fun shopping for car insurance can be? Visit Progressive.com and give the Name Your Price tool a try. Take the stress out of shopping and find the coverage that fits your life on your terms. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
He gave me a book on art forgery. I found myself drawn to these old masters. How did these artists take paint from a palette, arrange it on a canvas? I began to unlock the secrets. I was a storehouse of knowledge of how to create an illusion, present it to a experienced expert, manipulate his mind, and convince him and bring him to the inevitable conclusion that the painting is genuine. We flooded the market with my paintings, and I couldn't believe what I did. I couldn't believe it. Then the dominoes started falling, and eventually the FBI were led to my door. They uncovered a mountain of evidence against me.
But they never actually got you. At this point, you've sold a lot. You've got like $1 million in cash. You sold one painting for $717,000. Why did it go away? Why did you never get indicted? And how are we having this conversation?
I guess that's the greatest story of all.
To hear how Ken Perenni made millions in art forgery, dodged the mafia and the FBI, subscribe to The Jordan Harbinger Show and check out episode 282 in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you're listening now.
I'm Brett.
And I'm Alice.
And we are the Prosecutors. Today on The Prosecutors, a lone gunman held the entire province of Nova Scotia in fear as he went on a 13-hour killing spree, claiming the lives of 22 victims. How could something like this happen? Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of The Prosecutors. I'm Brett, and I'm joined, as always, by my Scanchili co-host, Alice.
I don't know what that means, but it sounds delicious.
You know, I'm not really sure how close that was. That was from Arpi, or Arpa. I don't even know how to pronounce Arpi's name. Sorry, Arpi. He is Armenian, and that means admirable.
Oh, it's a beautiful word.
Apparently, so...
It's
not too many Armenian speakers probably listening to the podcast, so I'm probably pretty safe. But I think I got it really wrong, but it's fine.
You know what? It's kind of like if a tree falls in a forest, did it fall if no one hears it? Same with Armenian. It does. It matters. It always matters. That's why we mispronounce everything.
We really are bad.
We are so bad. But it's really not out of malice. It's out of sheer stupidity.
It's true. It's true. It's funny because every now and then I'll read someone, they'll be like, hey, you know, I'm looking for a new podcast. I was listening to this one. I didn't like the fact they kept mispronouncing things. And I was like, oh.
You're not going to like us.
You're not going to recommend us then. That's a bad one.
We get a free pass because of your accent. Stuff. They'll be like, that guy doesn't know even how to say penguins.
Exactly. That's what I get. Anyway, well.
That's the last time you're going to laugh today.
It's true. This is a brutal case we're going to talk about. I feel like we've been saying that more and more at the beginning of cases. We just need to stop. You know, we're always talking about how terrible the cases are going to be. And
every time we talk about the podcast or what we do, one of the most asked questions is like, how do you decide what to do next? Or, do you ever run out of cases? And the answer is no, because you crazy people keep committing crazy crimes. And when I say you people, I obviously don't mean you, unless it's you, in which case, turn yourself in now.
Exactly. And I'll say this one was recommended to us. It's been recommended to us several times, but we were talking a few episodes ago about how it's fairly rare for someone to fake being a police officer. And people recommended this case. They're like, hey, there's one where exactly that happened. We're going to talk about that. Canada, we're going back to Canada, Nova Scotia, which I hear is beautiful. I've never been. I would love to go to Nova Scotia. And normally, when you think about Nova Scotia, you're thinking beautiful, right? Anne of Green Gables is from Nova Scotia, right? In this case we're going to talk about today, completely out of character in this part of Canada. And one of those things that I think people know about this case, but it happened right in the heart of COVID and the COVID pandemic. And I think, as awful as this is, it almost got not swept under the rug. It's nothing nefarious like that, but overshadowed by international events.
And let me just set the stage. If you haven't been to Nova Scotia, it really is probably one of my favorite places on earth, because it's not so much remote, but it just seems utterly peaceful. There are just these vast open spaces. It's not overcrowded. Air is fresh and clean. There's greenery everywhere. Like Brett said, one of my favorite childhood books, Anne of Green Gables, is set in Prince Edward Island of Nova Scotia. You can drive along the coast and it feels otherworldly because it's so peaceful, which is why this story is just so immensely striking, because it is in stark contrast to what most people think of when they think of Nova Scotia, which is peace and beauty.
And I promise Canadians out there, second largest group of people who listen to the podcast, we don't pick these cases just because we want to attack the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. I grew up with like Dudley Do-Right and other Mountie stuff. And I like Mounties, and they're cool, and they got the cool red uniforms and the horses and everything. But man, it seems like every case we talk about in Canada, the RCMP just comes off terribly. And you're going to see that again in this case. I mean, this is a horrific case. But one thing that is so striking about it is how long it lasted and how poorly the threat was communicated to the people of Nova Scotia and Canada. So that is one thing we're definitely going to talk about.
So Canadians, don't get mad at us. Yes, Prince Edward Island is the province bordering Nova Scotia, but one of the most famous stories is right there. So they are literally touching each other. For the rest of us Americans who haven't been up there, we know they're different provinces, but to put you in this otherworldly place, because Prince Edward Island is described in so much detail in Anne of Green Gables, that it should give you an idea of where we are here.
You people made Prince Edward Island an entire province unto itself. It's kind of wild. You only got like 8 of them.
It's the smallest province. It's the smallest. It's like, I
think they got 11. Maybe 11. I don't know.
Anyways, that was like an asterisk before you give us a 1-star review. We know, but we're also living in literary land.
They're always like coming after us. It's fine though, because we love
Canadians.
You guys.
We love you guys. That's why we keep doing it. That's true.
I mean,
all your crazy cases.
We cover Canadian cases almost as much as we do American cases. And we're back again. So let's talk a little bit about where we're going. The small oceanside province of Nova Scotia. It's known for its picturesque views, delicious seafood, focus on maritime life. Beautiful place. Everyone should visit it. I would love to go. Maybe one day I can come visit in Nova Scotia. Been to Canada before, but never Nova Scotia. But as we were saying, in April of 2020, this really wonderful place would become known for something much darker. The deadliest mass killing in modern Canadian history. This all began on April 18th, 2020, when a man named Gabriel Wortman would leave his home in Portapique. I don't know if that's right, but it sounds right. It sounds good. And begin a 13-hour killing spree that would span 155 kilometers. That's 96.3 miles for the Americans out there. And claim the lives of 22 people. Though his motive for the attacks has never been made clear, and we'll talk about that more as we get into the details. The 51-year-old denturist had a long history of violent behavior and troubling beliefs. Wortman grew up in an abusive household with an angry and violent father, which is something we so often see in cases like this, and he continued this pattern of behavior in his adult life. And he was known as a paranoid and abusive man. And in fact, in 2000, he actually beat his father until he was unconscious, though it doesn't appear that any charges were filed in this matter. He wasn't done. 2 years later, he would plead guilty to assaulting a teenager. In 2013, he was in trouble again for saying he wanted to kill a cop. That same year, a neighbor reported to the RCMP that Wortman was harassing him, that he was abusive to his common-law wife, and he was in possession of illegal guns. So he was someone who was on the RCMP radar for a very long time and had exhibited a lot of violent behavior and had access to firearms.
So Wortman's troubling behavior didn't end with violence. He was also a survivalist and believed that no one in authority could be trusted and that society's institutions were collapsing. So this sounds not unlike we've covered in other cases. In the United States, Brett and I have dealt with sovereign citizens. Slightly different, but essentially they do not recognize the power of any sort of government. They are their own entity, which ends up being very dangerous, especially when mixed with violent tendencies. So Wortman doesn't acknowledge basically any government authority because in his mind, it's all collapsing. Now, this is obviously made worse because April 2020, what are we in? We're just 1 month into utter shutdown from the COVID-19 pandemic, when there was a lot of unease, a distrust of the government, distrust of medicine, distrust of all sorts of things. And it did feel like the world was ending. Now, this pandemic strengthened this belief for him, and it served as evidence that he was right about the world, that everything was in fact crumbling, and it was survive or be ended. So there were several red flags leading up to the April 2020 massacre. In the weeks prior, Wortman bought and stockpiled food, water, weapons, ammunition, and gasoline. To be totally clear, I think a lot of people were doing this in 2020. And so in hindsight, we see this as incredibly troubling because of what he did. But I mean, I bought a lot of toilet paper, for example. I didn't buy gasoline. I also didn't buy ammunition. But there was a lot of talk of the markets are going to crash. It's not clear what our mode of currency is going to be. And so you can see that this is almost the perfect storm because normally if your neighbor's stockpiling food and water and weapons, you'd say like, whoa, dude, what's going on? But we were in the middle of the pandemic and there was a run on different types of supplies.
I basically did all these things.
I know. I mean, I remember the two of us, I actually remember we bought freezers during this time to freeze a bunch of food.
Sure
I remember this because we were both like, hey, Costco has these freezers on sale and we both got freezers and I bought half a cow. Now, to be totally fair, I continue to buy half cows because my children eat so much food. But I remember you said in your basement you had like buckets of rice and stuff like that. We all did.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. This was, I don't know, I say it's unfortunate timing, but this could be part of the trigger, like you said. I mean, he's always been on edge. He's always been paranoid. He's always been somebody who's prone to do something like this. And then COVID happens. And whereas many of us went a little overboard, you know, I bought like buckets of freeze-dried food and I did get another gun. I got more ammunition just in case, got the water, you know, took out a bunch of money from the bank. Well, at least have some cash if it's worth anything, if everything collapses. So, yeah, I mean, a lot of us did this and a lot of us freaked out a little bit, but we were not primed to think, wow, this is the end of the world. He obviously took this to an extreme.
Yeah, and honestly, like Brett, he even liquidated many of his assets. He took out funds from the bank and he put almost $500,000, $475,000 in cash in fireproof containers at one of his properties. But even with these red flags, no one could have predicted the atrocities that would follow. I mean, Brett's case in point. Brett did all of those things. He did not go on to massacre dozens of people.
Yeah, and I mean, it's one of those, and we're going to talk about this a lot. What drives someone to do something like this. And the fact that it goes on for so long. I struggle with these cases, and I do the same thing all of you do, which is try and figure out why and ask questions about what could drive somebody to do this and what could the possible motive be and all those things. And we always tell you that's a fool's errand. It's really hard, though, not to think about these things. And as we're going to see, it seems like the trigger for this is quite ordinary. I'm not going to say it's benign, but it's the sort of thing you see all the time. But frankly, the sort of thing that often leads to extreme outbursts of violence. So that takes us to April 18th, 2020. This message is sponsored by Greenlight. Guys, if you've been listening to us, you know every true crime story has got money somewhere in the mix. Maybe it's the motive, maybe it's the pressure, maybe it's the moment everything goes wrong. And the fact of the matter is, the lack of financial literacy is what makes people, especially kids and teens, easy targets for fraudsters. Well, that's where Greenlight comes in. Greenlight is a debit card and app for families, but it's more than a money tool. It's a safety net for teaching kids about money while also helping protect them before bad habits, bad actors, or real-world risks take hold. We all know how it works. You give them cash, you have no idea where it goes. You don't know how they're spending it. You don't know if they're spending it well, and you certainly don't know if someone is taking advantage of them. With Greenlight, it'll be different. You'll get real-time notifications the second your child swaps their card. You can set spending controls by store category and see exactly where the money is going. You can help teach your kids how to save, how to invest, and to build real confidence with money. But it's not just about money. Parents can place alerts when kids come and go from school, activities, or home. You can even have driving safety features. And if your child ever feels unsafe, SOS alerts make sure help is just a tap away. And here's the part that should worry you. It's not just about teaching your kids how to handle money. It's also about avoiding scammers. Scammers targeting teens have tripled, and every transaction without your visibility is an opportunity for fraud. That's why Greenlight helps protect families from scammers with credit, identity, and dark web monitoring. Now is the time to form those good habits and make sure your kids are safer and learning how to be financially independent in this world. Every day they're handling money without guidance is a missed opportunity. Start your risk-free Greenlight trial today at greenlight.com/prosecutors. Don't wait to teach your kids real-world money skills. That's greenlight.com/prosecutors to get started. greenlight.com/prosecutors.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever think about switching insurance companies to see if you could save some cash? Progressive makes it easy. Just drop in some details about yourself and see if you're eligible to save money when you bundle your home and auto policies.
The process only takes minutes, and it could mean hundreds more in your pocket. Visit Progressive.com after this episode to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states. Guys, you may not know this, but I wear contacts, and I'm really bad about it. I wear them all the time. I sleep in them for weeks at a time. And eventually, you know what? My eyes start feeling not that great, and I got to wear glasses. But the problem is, the glasses I have are like 25 years old. And you know how it is. Even in 2026, replacing glasses feels like a whole production, so most of us just live with it. You got to schedule an appointment, you got to pay a fortune, then you wait. Well, our newest sponsor, Zenni Optical, fixes all of that. Zenni is an online eyewear shop. Prescription glasses, sunglasses, blue light lenses, starting at under $30. You go to Zenni.com, pick a frame, upload your prescription, and they ship it to your door. No appointment, no store, no upsell at the counter. I was able to get a pair of both prescription sunglasses and regular glasses on Zenni. It took no time at all. My daughter helped me pick out my sunglasses. They're these awesome aviators with these polarized pink lenses. They're amazing. amazing. I can't wait to wear them in public. You're going to love Zenni as much as I do.
And at that price, something kind of shifts. You stop asking, do I really need new glasses? And you start asking, why wouldn't I just get them? You're not agonizing over one pair that has to do everything for the next 2 years. Just get the ones that work. Get the fun ones. Get the pair that matches your outfit. At under $30, you don't have to justify it. Over 150,000 5-star reviews. And if you've never bought glasses online before, Zenni has a virtual try-on so you can see exactly how a frame looks on your face before you commit. I use this and apparently I need square frames. I loved it. I got to do it from my home. If your glasses are overdue for a refresh, now is the time. Go to zenni.com/podcast and use code podcast15 for 15% off your first order. The styles sell out, so don't sit on it. That's zenni.com/podcast. Promo code podcast15.
It's in the evening. Porter Peak residents Gabriel Wortman and his common law wife, Lisa Banfield, attend a party where they are heard having a loud argument. They leave and return to their nearby home where the argument sort of continues, but then Lisa goes to bed. Shortly before 10 p.m., so this happens in the evening, she goes to bed. Well, apparently, Wortman is not only stewing in his rage, but he's preparing to do something about it. It's right before 10 p.m. when Wortman, who has now dressed himself in an RCMP uniform, wakes Lisa. He is armed with 4 firearms, a Colt law enforcement grade carbine rifle, which looks a lot like an AR-15, which you guys are probably familiar with, a Ruger Mini 14 rifle, similar deal, a Glock GMB8 semi-automatic pistol, and a Ruger P89 semi-automatic pistol. So he has 2 rifles and 2 pistols. He orders Lisa to go outside, and he's firing shots at her feet as she went. And I even wonder about this because where we live, where I grew up, you hear gunshots all the time. Where I grew up, it was more because people were hunting or shooting or doing whatever. Where I live now, it's more because people are committing crimes. I wonder if Porter Peak is the kind of place where you just hear gunshots, because he's already firing out shots. Now, he's not shooting her, but he's shooting at her feet. Like this is some like bizarre Western or something. He pulls off her shoes and he drags her by the hair and pushes her into the back of a decommissioned RCMP vehicle, which he has purchased from a federal government auction site, which I have lots of questions about later on. But so he makes dentures. That's his job. He's not a cop, but he's got this RCMP uniform and he has this decommissioned vehicle, which apparently looks just like an RCMP active cruiser, which is a real problem. I don't really know. I feel like that should be illegal, but I don't know. Maybe it's just me. He then, at this point, douses their home, garage, and his truck with gasoline and sets it all on fire. Now, at this point, Lisa saves her own life. She's able to escape the vehicle and she runs into the nearby woods to hide. If she hadn't done that, she absolutely would have been killed.
And thankfully, there was a concerned neighbor, Lisa McCulley, who calls 911 after seeing the fires. And she went across the street to check on her neighbors where Gabriel shot and killed her. So no good deed goes unpunished. She's just like, oh my goodness, my neighbor's house is on fire. She goes over to check. But as soon as Gabriel sees her, she is shot by him. And this is why what Brett said is totally true. Lisa was going to be killed. Maybe he was going to torture her a little bit more, because I can't think of how horrifying it was to be told to march outside while being shot at. She didn't know whether those bullets would hit her. It's actually incredible that none of them ricocheted off and hit her. But Lisa wasn't so lucky. She dies. So McCulley had 2 young children who were asleep at her home. This is devastating because she was just going to check on a neighbor and her kids are asleep at home, but knows to them their mom is dead. Gabriel had previously had a dispute over some property with McCulley, but it's not like they were actively fighting in that moment.
And as you're going to see, this begins with people he knows and maybe he has some slight disagreements with, but it's going to spiral out from beyond that as well. I mean, Gabriel Wortman, he clearly, that rage inside of him, something has snapped. And he is now, at this point, he has lost it. It is sad. I mean, all these are sad, but you have someone who clearly is just concerned. She's called 911. She's going over to try and help. She's there to help. And what does he do? He shoots her and kills her.
So Gabriel, dressed in that RCMP uniform, jumps into his RCMP decommissioned vehicle, and he drove to the home of another pair of neighbors, Greg and Jamie Blair. There, he shot and killed Greg outside as Jamie ran back into the home, barricading her and her children in a bedroom. From there, Jamie called 911 and reported the shooting while holding the door shut with her body. Meanwhile, Gabriel shot into the room. At that point, a bullet strikes Jamie and kills her. Her kids are terrified and they run from their home to the McCauley's home where they hid with the McCauley children. This is just like devastating beyond devastating. Both kids don't even totally know if they both know that both of their parents have died, but they're huddled together in absolute terror.
And it is. It's like a horror movie. Honestly, getting to the RCMP's reaction, sometimes you watch horror movies and stuff like this is happening, and you think, man, this is so unrealistic. The police would be there immediately. Well, as you're going to see, I mean, at this point, he set the house on fire. He shot and killed one person who called 911. He shot and killed somebody else. The wife calls 911. She's now shot and killed. He then goes to the home of Frank and Dawn Galuchin, where he shoots and kills them both. And then he sets fire to their home, at which point another couple living nearby see the blaze. They called 911. So now the authorities have received at least 3 different 911 calls. They've got calls that people have been shot and killed. They got calls that various buildings are on fire.
This sounds like war.
Exactly.
This sounds like the terrorist attack, right?
So then they get in their car to see if they could go assist. They see an RCMP vehicle and they're like, oh, the police. Unfortunately, Gabriel Wortman's in that RCMP vehicle. They pull up beside him. They see that he's the driver. They realize they know him. At this point, he fires 2 shots into their car. He hits Frank, but they are able to speed away and survive. He then continues on, killing a retired couple, Peter and Joy Bond. And all this has happened in like a 20-minute span. I mean, this is just wild insanity is taking place in this tiny little town.
And the insanity continues. So now, about 20 minutes later, 10:01 p.m., Clinton Ellison, who's visiting his father in Portapique, calls 911 to let them know that he heard gunshots and sees fire. While Clinton calls 911, his brother Corey Ellison goes outside to see what's going on. When Clinton hangs up the phone, he goes outside to check on Corey, and to his horror, Corey is dead in the road. Clinton runs into the nearby woods and hides for 4 hours. This is like a zombie movie, except the zombie is Wortman going around killing people. Now, meanwhile, Gabriel continues on to the home of the Tuck family, where he kills Jolene Oliver, Aaron Tuck, and their teenage daughter, Emily. Elizabeth, Joanne Thomas, and John Zoll were also killed, the last of the Portapique victims. I mean, he is just mowing down all of his neighbors. It's like going down the road, killing everyone in his path. And the sad part about this is, this sounds like Nova Scotia. Everyone is so close-knit in the sense that when they see a fire, they call 911. They don't just do that. They walk outside to see if they can help because they're all neighbors. And by doing that, basically everyone who tries to help is shot and killed or barely gets away with their lives.
So at 10:26, only about 30 minutes after this starts, the RCMP arrives in Portapique, and they find a horror scene. Bodies, burning structures. They're able to find Frank. You remember Frank, who'd been shot. He comes up to them. He's been shot in the shoulder. The other bullet that was fired in the car actually grazed his forehead. And he's able to tell them that the shooter is Gabriel Wortman and that he was driving an RCMP vehicle. So at this point, 30 minutes into this whole thing, the RCMP knows it's Gabriel Wortman who's doing this, and he has access to an RCMP vehicle, and he's engaging in extreme violence, shootings, burning down houses. I mean, this is a real danger. At 10:35, a resident spots a vehicle driving through a field. This was Wortman, who was leaving the town of Portapique via a dirt road next to a blueberry field. Sometime after, more officers are beginning to arrive, and they're working to establish a perimeter, and they're searching homes, and they're trying to use dogs to locate the killer. They believe he's still there, so they're setting up roadblocks, trying to shut off the community, unaware that he has left via this dirt road, and he's no longer there. So they're starting to show up in force, but the person they're looking for is gone.
So at 11:12 p.m., a little over an hour after this killing spree starts, Wortman continues east to the community of DeBert, where he spent the next 6 hours parked in an industrial area. At 11:32, Nova Scotia RCMP tweet that they are responding to firearms complaint in Portapique. They ask people in the area to remain in their homes with their doors locked. Honestly, a tweet is probably the best way to reach a lot of people here. Now, they would not publicly address the situation again for 8 hours. At this point, do you set off a storm alarm just to be like, everyone stay inside?
I don't know. I mean, honestly, at this point, I would have done everything. I would have used every form of communication. I would not
because
have
he
limited it to a
clearly
tweet.
was not leaving anyone unharmed.
Now, I understand you don't want to cause a panic, whatever, but this guy,
panic worthy.
you don't know where he is. A lot's happening, and they had a lot of time. Yes, initially, this was a very quickly developing situation, and there's all sorts of fog of war, and it's really hard to come up with what should we do. But they're not going to address this again for 8 hours. He's hanging out for 6 hours, parked in this industrial area, probably expecting police are going to come at him at any time. He's probably thinking, I'm going to fight it out right here. When the police come and get me, we're going to have a shootout right here. This obviously is going to be severely criticized. Tweeting about it is the only way they communicated, and they did it a firearms complaint. I mean, if I saw that,
It's a murder complaint. This is a murder complaint.
Yeah, I mean, that wouldn't make me think anything, but that's what they do, and that's how they choose to address it.
So during this time, police were going door to door checking for victims and survivors as well as for the gunman. In total, they found 7 separate places in a 5 square kilometer area where 13 victims are found dead. Oh my goodness. I mean, this is just, again, this is akin to a zombie apocalypse. They also confirmed that Wortman was the shooter, and they were able to discover that he owned 3 properties in that area. They also uncovered that Wortman owned several replica police vehicles and was in possession of multiple firearms. With his criminal record, first of all, why are they selling their decommissioned vehicles that are obviously not police vehicles? But second, why are you selling them to a guy who has such a violent record?
Yeah, I mean, so in the United States, in most jurisdictions, and as you're going to see, seems like this was a fairly convincing replica. You can buy the old police cars, but they're stripped of all their, markings and everything else. It's usually illegal to have red and blue lights on a vehicle. Usually it's Altimas, souped up Altimas with running lights. They get stopped for that. But nevertheless, you're not supposed to have red or blue lights. So I don't know. Apparently in Canada, that wasn't a big deal. Now the firearms are all illegally owned. He'd gotten those illegally. I don't know if they knew about it, but they've been warned about it. They just hadn't taken action. But once again, okay, you're finding all this. Seems like this is a good time to warn everyone in the area. There's a guy with an RCMP police vehicle and a bunch of guns, and he is shooting up the area. He's already killed 13 people. He's setting a whole bunch of stuff on fire. If you're ever going to have all hands, this is the time. This is not just there was a shooting downtown. I don't understand why this wasn't the highest possible emergency for them. As someone in the chat said, if somebody breaks out of prison, you get more of a warning than you do with this. But it just seems like there was just nothing. So, Wortman, he's been hanging out for a long time. So now we're into April 19th. It's close to 6 o'clock in the morning. And he leaves this industrial area where he had been hiding. He's in his fake RCMP vehicle, and he is now heading north. At 6:30, he's caught on video entering the Wentworth area, which is about 60 kilometers from Portapique and 40 kilometers from DeBert. He proceeded to the home of a couple he knew, Alma Jenkins and Sean McLeod. He shot and killed them. He also killed their neighbor, Tom Bagley. Now, why did he do this? The only thing we really know is that Sean and Wortman had previously gone hunting together. So they had some very limited connection, but it was enough that he goes to their home, kills both of them, and kills the neighbor. He stays in the house for some time, but he will ultimately set it on fire and leave heading south.
Yeah, you know what? The way this timeline is going, it really did sound like he went on a spree, did it really fast because expecting to be stopped by the police, and then waits for the police for a shootout. And when it doesn't happen, he's like, well, I guess I'll keep shooting. The first set really did kind of come out of the blue, but that second set, when he starts at 5:43 in the morning, just seems devastating because he had already killed 13 people. You would think that he'd be able to be stopped. And he's not done yet, because at 6:30, Lisa Banfield, who's Wortman's common law wife, remember, she had run for her life and hid in the woods. She stayed there basically all night. And at 6:30, she emerges from the woods and she calls 911. She confirms with police that he being Wortman, is wearing an RCMP uniform and has a replica RCMP vehicle and multiple guns. At this point, the police had figured it out, but she is she's terrified. And she doesn't probably know what time it is. She finally comes out. If they had any doubts it was Wortman, they have no doubts now. They have his own common law wife, who was the subject of the first attack, telling them he is dressed, he is armed, he is in an RCMP decommissioned vehicle. At 8:02, the Nova Scotia RCMP shares another tweet stating that there was an active shooter in Portapique. Unfortunately, by this point, Wortman was 60 kilometers away in Wentworth. So this tweet would have been really helpful that night because he was still kind of in the Portapique area. But really now the danger is in Wentworth with Wortman. Around the same time, a series of 911 calls come from the Hunter Road area, and they're about fire and gunshots again. When I get that, even though if I don't know for sure, I'm sending out all the alarms and saying, probably suspected active shooter in the Hunter Road area in Wentworth. Everyone stay inside. But that doesn't happen.
Well, they tweet about it again because Twitter is apparently the only... If this weren't such a serious case, I would make a joke about, the Pony Express with the RCMP, but they've just chosen Twitter as their only way of communicating with anyone. It's 9 o'clock in the morning now. They release a photo of Wortman on Twitter. They warn that he is armed and dangerous. They confirm there have been multiple victims, but they don't go into any specifics. Around 9:23, Wortman finally leaves Wentworth. It's about 3 hours after he arrived. He's now headed southbound down Highway 4 when he shoots and kills Lillian Campbell Hyslop, who was just a woman walking down the highway. So she literally is just walking down the highway. He rides by, shoots her, kills her, keeps going. Someone calls 911 to report the shooting.
At 9:48, just 5 minutes later, Wortman arrives in the Glenholm area and he knocks on the door of a residence on Highway 4. The residents don't open the door. Instead, they call 911 to alert authorities that Wortman is there. He leaves when they don't answer the door, and by not answering the door, their lives are saved. At 10:08, the shooter, under the guise of an RCMP officer, pulls someone over heading northbound on Highway 4 back towards DeBert. So before he was just shooting people he knew, now he is actively impersonating an RCMP officer. When he pulls this person over, he shoots and kills the driver of the vehicle, who's Kristen Beaton. And she tragically was pregnant with her second child at the time. He then shot at a vehicle that was driving by, and that shot kills Heather O'Brien.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I can't believe this case isn't more well known. I vaguely knew about it in the vaguest way. And I can only imagine that was because of COVID. Because the stuff that happens in this is nightmarish to the point of, if this were in a movie, you would say, this is so over the top. It's so over the top. It's unbelievable. I mean, he's pulling the lady over. He's shooting her. Someone's driving by. It's like out of the Terminator or something. He's shooting her as she's driving by. It's just horrific.
So at 10:17, the RCMP tweet, yet again, that the shooter is wearing an RCMP uniform and driving a replica RCMP vehicle. I don't know why this wasn't included in the first tweet, because that would be one of the most alarming things to me, in addition to knowing that he's already killed 13 people back before midnight. But they now let people know, okay, not only stay inside your houses, but also there's this guy who's impersonating a police officer out there.
Okay, so at around 10:49 a.m., two RCMP officers, Constable Heidi Stevenson and Constable Chad Morrison, arranged to meet in the town of Shubenacadie, which I actually think is pretty close to the correct pronunciation, so give me some credit, where Highway 2 meets Highway 224. So they're going to meet where these two highways intersect. So if you're writing the movie, what would you have happen? So Morrison sees, this is how convincing the RCMP car is that he's driving, the replica. Morrison, Chad, he sees an RCMP vehicle coming. It pulls up next to him. He believes it's Stevenson, but it's not. It's the gunman who opens fire. Now, Morrison manages to escape. He's injured, and he notifies dispatch that he's been shot. At this point, Wortman leaves. He starts driving south on Highway 2, and Stevenson, I don't know and we'll never know exactly how this goes down, but she actually collides with his vehicle. I kind of feel like she has probably heard over dispatch what happened to Morrison and realizes that's him. So she's like, well, I'm going to take out his car at least. So she collides with his vehicle. Unfortunately, he's able to shoot her and kill her. At this point, a good Samaritan, Joey Weber, is driving by and sees these two RCMP vehicles have wrecked into each other. So he stops to see if he can help. And of course, he is shot and killed. So at this point, Wortman lights his cruiser and Stevenson's vehicle on fire. So he lights their cars on fire, and he gets in Joey Weber's car and drives off. And the only good thing about this, and this is because of Constable Heidi Stevenson's sacrifice, at least now he's no longer in that replica RCMP vehicle.
So at 11:06 a.m., the RCMP tweets that the shooter has changed vehicles and is believed to be driving a silver SUV and traveling southbound on Highway 102. Around the same time, Wortman arrives at the home of Gina Goulet in Shubenacadie, whom he knows. He also shoots and kills her. And at this point, so he's changed cars, now he changes clothes, and he steals her Mazda 3. At 11:24, the RCMP tweet that the shooter is now driving a Chevy Tracker. Now, this turns out to be incorrect, of course, because he's in the Mazda 3.
Now, at this point, they're being much more proactive. Hard to blame them for errors here because he's changing cars and everything else. But the good news is, at around 11:25, he pulls into an Irving gas station in Enfield. At this point, because once again, this is a movie. This is like evidence that we live in a simulation or something. Tactical officers who are looking for him, well, they are out of gas, so they need some gas. They pull into the same gas station to fuel their vehicles. So this is literally like his car's at the pump. A whole bunch of tactical officers roll up, get out. They're putting gas in their vehicle. And one of them notices that the guy sitting in the other car at the gas station has blood on his head. At this point, they realize that's the guy we're looking for. They approach the vehicle. Wortman raises his gun, and they waste no time. He does that. They light him up, and he is killed. And at this point, his horrific 13-hour killing spree has come to an end, though not before he traveled at least 155 kilometers and killed 22 people.
You know what's shocking about this is there are like so few misses. He basically misses like 2 people he shoots at don't die. Everybody else is dead on and he kills them. And that is frightening because he is not only violent, he is accurate, and he is good at what he does.
He kills one person just driving by. You're right. I don't know. I guess he spent a lot of time practicing with those guns.
I was going to say, this shows like all the premeditation and the planning it takes, because even the best shooters are not this accurate, right?
Man.
This is immense.
And look, I mean, I know as we said in the beginning, I know everybody out there is thinking, why did he do this? What could possibly lead to someone taking these kind of actions? Why did he kill all these people? It's a question we ask ourselves in so many of the cases we cover. Now, obviously, he's not like Julia Beverly, right? I mean, she does something horrible. She has no prior history of violence. And so that makes that a little bit more difficult to understand. The family dynamic probably gives you a lot of insight. Here, you do have a guy who, he's been violent. He's been in trouble with the law before, but none of his prior acts of violence even approach this. The triggering event is he gets into a domestic altercation with his common law wife, and that leads him to go on this rampage. There's no manifesto. There's no great political end here. There's no, he was under some delusion other than his delusion that things were falling apart, which at the beginning of COVID might not even been that delusional. We're not going to have any answer for you. We can tell you some things about him that are interesting, speak to sort of his background, but why he did this will always be a complete mystery.
Absolutely. I mean, the why is such a huge question here. And we only know so much. So Gabriel Wortman was lifelong friends with disgraced New Brunswick lawyer Tom Evans. Evans was a successful lawyer in the 1980s until he resigned as a lawyer in the early 90s after being convicted of sexually assaulting an underage boy and plying him with liquor. So, not great. Now, Evans was 19 years older than Wortman, and according to Wortman, they met when he was just a child. Wortman also rented a room from Evans when he attended the University of New Brunswick. Did that have anything to do with what happened? Who knows? Except that when you're trying to figure out how someone just completely snaps and becomes this incredibly violent person, you have to look into who they knew, what they may have experienced growing up, what altered their brain chemistry to do something like this.
And look, I don't think it's making excuses for him to say that he grew up in a violent household. And apparently one of his childhood friends turned out to be a pedophile who he knew when he was a child and he rented a room from when he was in college. We don't know that anything happened there, but it possibly could have. But I think Alice is right. I think when you look at these cases, trying to understand why they happen, what some of the triggers are, what some of the red flags are, is valuable. I mean, we always talk about it. How do you stop these things from happening? And people have all sorts of views, and it often gets very political. But when you're just looking at these cases and trying to identify potential perpetrators, maybe some of this history is relevant. And they were lifelong friends. When Evans died in 2009, he left Wortman his entire estate and his possessions, including the Ruger Mini 14 semi-automatic rifle, which Wortman used in the 2020 attacks. Now, Wortman could not legally possess that firearm, but nevertheless, that's how he got it. And Wortman, who was the executor of this estate, would claim that Evans' estate had no value, and in fact, he never probated the will. This appears to have been an effort to both get some properties away from people who might have had interest in those properties and to avoid paying taxes, because in reality, Evans' estate was worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. If you wondered where did he get all that cash from, part of it was this estate that he took control of. But it gets weirder, these two, in their relationship. So this has been looked into pretty extensively by various Canadian news agencies because, once again, everybody's trying to figure out why did this happen. Well, apparently, not only were they close, but the two men were known to travel to the United States together. And they were basically smugglers. They would smuggle cigarettes, alcohol, other items, probably firearms, various other illegal things, across the border using a sailboat that Evans owned and that Wortman would later inherit as well. Wortman's uncle, Glenn, reportedly warned the family to get Wortman away from Evans because Evans would, quote, only get him in trouble. That seems to be fairly accurate. The Halifax Examiner would report that Evans sort of took Wortman under his wing. Remember, he'd known him since he was a child. And remember, Wortman is this kind of vulnerable kid pedophiles often target because he has this rough home life. He isn't close with his father, ends up beating his father up at some point. And so he sort of takes him under his wing. He shows him how to make money, smuggling illegal goods across the U.S. border. So hard to say both men are dead. We'll never have concrete answers on this, but their relationship is one of the more intriguing aspects of this story beyond just the horrific rampage that Wortman goes on.
I love a good bargain. In fact, it just pains me to pay for anything full price when I know that there are other options. Garage sales, clearance racks, you name it. I never walk away from a good deal. I grew up thinking that that's just what you're supposed to do, find good deals. Well, turns out there are a lot of us out there. I found a designer bag on Whatnot for literally half of what it was going to be anywhere else, and it was still for sale at full price elsewhere. I got to watch the seller show it up close, ask questions about the condition, and buy it knowing exactly what I was getting into. That's the real magic of Whatnot, and why other apps just don't compare. Whatnot makes you connect with a seller so that you really know what you're buying before you buy it. On Whatnot, you're connecting with sellers and other shoppers. It's like hanging out with a group that gets you. This is a fun way to shop from the comfort of your own home on your phone. And you almost never pay full price. You can shop name brands across makeup, perfume, clothes, handbag, jewelry, and more, all without the retail sticker shock. And this is the best place to find great deals on products you love. I love nice clothes. I just don't like the price tag. I was able to jump on there because I had a wedding to go to recently and I wanted a new dress, but I didn't want to pay that full price tag. I instantly connected with other shoppers and sellers on beautiful dresses and was able to pick out a perfect outfit for this nighttime wedding.
And guys, it's not just if you want to buy. If you have clothes, bags, or accessories sitting in your closet you no longer reach for, Whatnot makes it easy to turn them into cash, connect with shoppers who share your style, and have fun going live while doing it. Download Whatnot today and get $20 off and free shipping on your first purchase. Search Whatnot, WHATNOT, in the App Store. Sign up and start finding the best deals on the products you love with $20 off and free shipping on your first purchase.
Guys, I'm at an age where I cannot ignore my skin. It gets dry with the seasons, and I just know I have to pay more attention. It's not just that I can wash it with the closest soap and move on. But it's so hard to know what works well with my skin. That's why I'm so excited about OneSkin. I know that I try every new skincare product that hits the market, or I use the same one over and over. But at some point, most of us realize that our skin just isn't keeping up the way we'd like. That's what OneSkin changed for me. It wasn't just looking for something that might work better than my current routine. I found something that actually works differently. As we age, some skin cells stop functioning the way they should. Longevity scientists call them zombie cells. And that's what's actually driving those visible signs of aging. The fine lines, the loss of firmness, the dullness that creeps in over time. And OneSkin's OS1 peptide was specifically engineered to address those. So you're getting everything you expect from great skincare with OS1 doing something most skincare was never built to do. Now that it's summer, I really need a good sunblock because I know that sun damage is one of the worst ways I can treat my skin. OneSkin has helped me out because I know that when I use OneSkin's facial cream with sunscreen protection, I can immediately tell the difference. It nourishes my skin looks better already, and I can go enjoy the summer days with my kids.
Born from over a decade of longevity research, OneSkin's OS1 peptide is proven to target the visible signs of aging, helping you unlock your healthiest skin now and as you age. For a limited time, try OneSkin with 15% off using code Prosecutors at oneskin.co/prosecutors. That's 15% off oneskin.co with code Prosecutors. After you purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them we sent you.
I mean, that's a really interesting way. Again, being a smuggler doesn't necessarily mean you're this like utterly violent person, right? So this is the part of the story where you throw a bunch of spaghetti at the wall in terms of like his background. We're not necessarily saying this is what led him to do these sorts of things, but trying to make sense of the nonsensical here. So this attack goes forward. 22 people die in quick succession. and it ends with Wortman himself being shot to death. The repercussions of this are going to be astronomical, of course, because an entire province was terrorized. So on May 1st, 2020, Justin Trudeau, who's the Prime Minister of Canada, announced a federal ban on 1,500 makes and models of military-style assault weapons and variants of semi-automatic rifles, including the Ruger Mini 14 model, used by the shooter. Now, according to the police, none of the firearms in Wortman's possessions were legally owned by him. But nonetheless, the response to this, which we often see, is like a massive ban of a ton of types of guns.
I would like to know if they did anything about owning replica vehicles. Because
I was going to say that, or replica uniforms.
Yeah, I mean...
Right? Impersonating an officer is a very serious crime here in the United States.
Like, why would you need that? If you need it to make a movie, at least have a permitting system. I mean, there has to be some way to avoid you being able to pull a woman over and shoot her in your replica car, at least.
To fool another RCMP.
Yeah, that's a good
officer.
one. And I think that's important to note, because I'm sure a lot of you out there are thinking, well, I see people with cars. Yeah. We talked about that earlier. You can get vehicles. They never look like police vehicles that well. Even if you initially saw them, you're like, oh, is that a cop? Like sometimes you'll see they still have that really bright light that's right outside the door so they can reach out and they can shine it, and you'll see that come up behind you like, oh, it's a cop. Then you realize, oh no, it's not. This was so convincing that he could pull up beside another officer and the officer thought he was a cop. That is wild that you could do something like that. And I don't know. I mean, that's certainly something I hope they looked at. That's just wild. That's wild to me.
Like we said, the first 13 victims who were in Portapique, it really did happen in such quick succession. It was difficult to know what was happening. They're getting all these 911 calls. Is it fire? Is it a shooter? It's not even clear. But then he goes on to kill another 9 people. So many people have been openly critical of the RCMP's response to these tragic events because they didn't effectively do certain things like block all the exits in Portapique. You know you have this mass murderer in Portapique and he's in a car? Block all the roads. They provided misinformation, slow to provide information, and they were only providing information on Twitter, not phone calls. You know, I get phone calls for our soccer field being closed, right? There are ways to do communication in emergency situations, but they were only communicating by Twitter. And there was actually no general alert ever given, even once it became clear and they were giving more frequent updates on Twitter. They didn't use like a general alert system or go on TV, for example, and do a plea for people to stay inside their homes. Don't be good Samaritans. Don't pull over for an RCMP looking car. But of course, the RCMP defends their response, saying that it was all very confusing and fast moving at the time. I do agree. Really, I see 2 sets of mass murders, 13 and then 9. The 9 later, it's such a tragedy they died because they had time to stop him. And those 9 died nonetheless.
Yeah, and look, that was the RCMP's position. It was not satisfying for a lot of people. And so the federal and the Nova Scotia government launched a public investigation into the response. Remember, this is 2020. I mean, it's great that they were using Twitter. I love that they used Twitter. I don't fault them for using Twitter, but it's astonishing that that's all they used, that they only tweeted about it. I think there's a lot of people who weren't on Twitter, maybe in Nova Scotia at the time. But anyways, so they released this final report. It's incredibly detailed, and it is damning for the RCMP. This is March of 2023. I feel like so many of our cases end with a damning report for the RCMP. We're back again. It's another damning report for the RCMP. And maybe it's just because the RCMP really believes in looking internally and figuring out what went wrong and not covering it up and taking responsibility. That's going to be my positive spin on this, is that at least the RCMP is trying to figure out what went wrong. Anyways, it's very critical of the RCMP, and it made a lot of detailed findings, but here's sort of the 8 high-level findings that they made. Number 1, the first responders were faced with a chaotic situation, but the RCMP command system failed them. It did not give them the direction they needed in this fast-moving, difficult situation. A lot of decisions were left to RCMP officers on the ground who just were not in a position to be able to do that. The RCMP failed to warn the public effectively. Yes. And you'll see many of these, or subsets of that. The next one, the RCMP's social media warnings were grossly inadequate. So even the warnings they were putting out on Twitter, you got a dozen people dead and buildings on fire, and they're responding to a firearms complaint, which I see that doesn't make me think, man, I better stay in my house. I better not answer the door, right? They also did not use the Alert Ready system, which is Canada's emergency alert system. And the report treated this as a systemic failure. Apparently they just were wrong about this. They were under the impression that they needed to get all these different approvals to do this. It would be really hard. Can you even use it for this? And it's probably not what it's made for. The reality was, if they had just said, hey, this situation, they would have issued the Alert Ready alert. And that would have been the one that would have gone to everyone's phones, that would have gone to their televisions, their radios. Like, basically, if you're connected in any way, you would have gotten an alert that there's a shooter on the loose in an RCMP vehicle, and stay away from that guy. And if they had done that, this still would have been an incredible tragedy, because, as Alice said, the first dozen or so victims, there was no stopping that. But some of these later ones you see, you got to think, those people would at least have had a chance. And they didn't have that chance because they had no idea what was going on. Critical information did not get to the right people fast enough. That's obviously true. Coordination with other agencies was weak, so people weren't talking to each other. This has obviously moved beyond Port-au-Pique. It becomes fairly obvious fairly quickly it's moved beyond Port-au-Pique, and yet the people in the different areas are not communicating that, hey, we have people being shot and buildings on fire too, which would have alerted people that this is a much bigger problem. The RCMP failed to conduct an adequate post-incident review. So I take back all that I said about the RCMP, like trying to look internally. And the report concluded by calling for major reforms, not just small fixes here or there. We will put the final report up on the website if you want to read it. And it goes into a lot of detail about all of these problems. And, we always try and find some positive from this. I feel like usually when we talk about a Canadian case, the positive is, well, hopefully the RCMP has corrected X problem so it doesn't happen again. And that's where we're at again. This incredibly horrific thing happened. We can only hope that the RCMP has taken the steps necessary, that if there's another person out there like him getting ready to go on a rampage, that they'll be able to respond more quickly and more effectively.
But of course, we as prosecutors want to know, what justice can there be, right? Wortman isn't here to pay for his crimes. He's not ever going to be tried for his crimes. It's very clear that he did all of this. There's really no question. The question is why he did this. So what sort of justice are we left with? Well, in May of 2020, the families of the victims launched a class action lawsuit against Wortman's estate, which was estimated to be about $2.1 million. In August of 2020, a second class action suit against the RCMP criticizing their response to the attacks was filed as well. Now, this, of course, it's never going to bring back all of these people who are senselessly killed. But we often say, like, civil lawsuits, especially when it's like wrongful death or trying to just seek some sort of compensation, is sometimes as close to justice as you can get in these sorts of situations. So in December of 2020, the police arrested Lisa Banfield, Wortman's common-law wife, along with her brother James and her brother-in-law Brian Brewster. And they were charged with unlawfully purchasing and transferring ammunition, which Wortman had used in his attacks. Now, law enforcement does not believe that they had any knowledge of these attacks, but I guess they were pressured to bring charges against someone, so they brought it against the people who had bought the ammunition that were ultimately used. As you can see, I mean, Lisa was really victim number one. It's a wonder that she wasn't killed. And they are not exactly the people to be held responsible for what Wortman did, and these charges were ultimately dropped. In February of 2021, the class action suit was expanded to include Lisa Banfield, James, and Brian Brewster, claiming that they had helped the killer prepare for the attacks based on that previous, they purchased the ammunition and the guns. Now, these lawsuits are still pending. Unfortunately, the justice system churns very slowly, and they remain unresolved to this day. Highly unsatisfying, just like unsatisfying as to why Wortman did this in the first place.
Yeah, it is. There's no resolution here. And honestly, even if they got all his money and there'd be no resolution, I think they're just trying to do what they can to get some justice here. It seems like the legal system moves just as slowly in Canada as it does in the United States. This is 6 years ago now. This happened right after we started the podcast. It's one of the things I noticed. We were recording episodes right as this happened, and here we are 6 years later, no closer to really knowing why this happened or having any positive resolution. As I said, when I think when you look at these cases, all you can try and do is remember the victims and hope that lessons are learned. And the hardest lessons are learned from the worst situations. So hopefully, as we said, the RCMP has taken a lot from this. And maybe this will be something that police forces around the world can learn from and really bolster that emergency alert system. I know even in the past few years here in the United States, now we have the Amber Alert. I get Amber Alerts all the time. You get the Silver Alerts when you have someone who's
That's right.
elderly who is missing.
The traffic alerts when there's like a big blockage on a highway, right? Because that could be dangerous if like a big car overturned and is blocking the entire highway.
Right.
I get those alerts on my phone now.
So I feel like the communication thing probably has improved. Some of this was probably the RCMP really trying to be forward thinking about how they're going to communicate. Oh, we're going to be on Twitter and everybody will see us. And it won't just be, grannies watching Wheel of Fortune seeing that there's something bad happening. We're going to have it on Twitter and this is going to be so great. And yeah, great way to enhance your communication, but they can't be the only thing. Well, look, this, as we said, a lot of people requested this. Thank you guys for sending this to us. That aspect of using the vehicle, I do want to just reiterate one reason this is such a striking case is because that is fairly uncommon. You don't see that very often, but it certainly happened in this case. Thank you guys for pointing this out. Thank you to all of our listeners in Canada. We love you guys. We always enjoy covering cases north of the border. Keep sending them to us. It's always a lot of fun, and it's different because just the system's different. It's Canada and the United States are so close yet different. I don't really know how to describe it. It's like not the same, but so close. But it's interesting to see how those differences matter. And the RCMP is a fascinating organization because it's kind of like the FBI, but it's kind of like your local police too. It's a very different structure they have. So always enjoy that. Thank you so much for listening and for providing case suggestions. We love you. I'd love to get up there. Have to go up to Nova Scotia. Have to visit Prince Edward's Island, see if they're different. Maybe we can combine those two, make it one province, have more power in Parliament. Do you have a Parliament? I guess they do. I don't know. Anyways, this is great. I'm going to stop talking before all the Canadians hate me again. If you do have cases you want to suggest, shoot us an email, prosecutorspod@gmail.com, @prosecutorspod for all your social media. We're just like the RCMP. We're on Twitter, but we're also on Facebook. In the gallery, you can join the gallery. You can follow us on Instagram. Or if you want to see these episodes recorded for only $3 a month, you can join Patreon. You also get the episodes early and ad-free on Patreon or on the Apple Podcast. You can subscribe now and get episodes without commercials. So then you don't have to do the whole Patreon thing, but you don't get to see our smiling faces. And I feel like that is part of the attraction, though maybe I'm wrong about that. So I guess we'll see. Well, Alice, do you want to answer a question today?
I think we have to. It's like this was so deeply unsatisfying because it's just so violent. It really shows you the utter depravity that a human is capable of. So yes, let's answer a question.
Let me just say, some of you don't like mysteries because you like resolutions. And the thing that I find more and more when we cover these cases is there's never a true resolution. We know who did it. Does that answer the great mystery at the heart of this case? No, it doesn't. I don't know. To me, these cases bother me more because there's no hope of resolution. We're never going to know why I did it. Even if you did, even if they discovered, we actually did write a manifesto and we discovered it and we're going to read it you're still not gonna, it's not gonna be satisfying. You're not really gonna know. You're not really gonna understand it. You know, this is the kind of horrific thing that happens that you just, I don't know, you can never really get past. So, anyways, with all that depressing stuff said, let's answer a question. Okay, this is by someone named Red Gun Dogs. Red Gun Dogs. They have a ton of vinyl. They like the sound more than digital music. And they play theirs on a 1964 Jared Lab 80. It was their dad's turntable. That's pretty awesome. They pair it with a 1963 Kenwood tube receiver and Sony reel to reel. That's kind of awesome. Okay, so they want to know, number one, what turntable do we play albums on? But also, do we have any albums? And what is our favorite record that we own?
This is tailor-made for you, Brett.
I mean, do you not have a...
I do not have a record player.
Do you have any records?
I have records, but from like my parents' collection growing up. So like I have them. And then sometimes when I go by like a used bookstore and I see one, even though I don't have a record player, if I see like a nostalgic album, I'll buy it. I don't have any like new records. I only have I have like ABBA. And, you know, like that's about as new as it gets because it makes me feel nostalgic because we used to have one growing up. And I loved experimenting with how the needle would play.
Oh, yeah. I would love to say I have like a 1950s, turntable or whatever. And I am curious now that you ask if my parents still have their turntable and what it is. But mine is a like audio techna, whatever. What it's called? Audio techna turntable that's connected to like fancy speakers. So it's nowhere near as like cool as yours. Yours is a much cooler one. Yeah, Audio Technica. It's great though. I mean, the kids love it. It's like fancy. They can like do the lights and stuff. They really like it. Favorite album. I mean, it doesn't really have to be an album. Like it doesn't have to actually be vinyl. So the first vinyl album I ever purchased, well, as an adult, was Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band by the Beatles, because I was very much in a Beatles place when I got my record player. So I got a bunch of Beatles albums, a bunch of Bob Dylan albums, The Wall, Tommy, like all this sort of classics. But then, all the new music comes out on vinyl as well. So vinyl sales are physical media. I mean, that's, blows away. Nobody buys CDs or tapes or anything like that anymore. If you're going to buy physical media, you buy a record because most stuff's just downloads. So I get like Taylor Swift albums on vinyl, all that kind of stuff. All that stuff is great.
Does it sound different?
So I don't know. People debate this.
Because you have the exact corollary there, right? You have like what you hear on your Apple Music for Taylor Swift and then the Taylor Swift vinyl. So you can like compare apples to apples.
I remember when I first got my record player and I put an album on the record player and started playing it. And my dog was in another room and like ran in the room barking like crazy.
Huh.
Because I think the dog thought
it was a person.
There's somebody in that room playing music. Now, he never did that with other music, and he heard music all the time.
Oh, so that's interesting.
That always made me think, okay, I may not be able to tell the difference, but I think he can. I think it sounds better, and I actually like the pops and the scratches. I like all that stuff because I think it adds authenticity.
It's like when you hear breathing when someone's talking. Exactly. That's why they add the breaths into AI voices.
Yeah, exactly. Someone needs to send Brett a Lana Del Rey album. You don't think I've got Lana Del Rey's albums? I was going to say,
you definitely have. I'm sure you do. You
Norman Rockwell, I got that baby. It's 4 discs. I play it all the time. Her first album, Born to Die, I got all that on vinyl. Come on. Yeah. I don't know. It's just such a good question. But it gets into the music thing.
I only have like older. I really did. I loved Donnie and Marie and ABBA. I had Michael Jackson, but like my parents didn't buy that. I did buy that because I'm a Thriller child.
Well, I've told my story about listening to Thriller on vinyl just over and over again when I was a kid. I mean, I loved Thriller, and I've got it. I got Thriller on vinyl.
That's
Play
great.
for the kids. You know, it's amazing. The problem with vinyl, and this is obvious, is...
Wears down?
Well, it wears down, but also we've become so accustomed to being able to hear whatever song we want to hear whenever we want to hear it. And we can skip all the songs we don't like. So music today is less album based. The really good artists, like I feel like one thing I like about Taylor Swift is I feel like her albums are always good. They're not just, there's like 5 hit songs on this and you listen to the songs. So like she builds kind of the albums to, it matters as an album. Her last one, which I didn't love, I didn't love her last album, but the whole thing has like an arc. And that's the perfect kind of record.
Way to listen to it, yeah.
Yeah, like if you, vinyl, you listen to it, like there's The Head and the Heart, which is a great band some of you have heard of. Their first album, which came out 15 years ago, which is hard to believe, awesome on a record player because it is an album from start to finish and every song kind of plays into each other. And when you listen to it on the record player, it's just great. And so that's what I like. And that's why stuff like Tommy or The Wall is so great because the whole thing matters. You're not just listening to one song. So I think as far as what is my favorite records, vinyl records, it's whenever you have something that the whole record matters. You're not just looking for that 1 or 2 songs that you want to hear. That's my thought. All right, guys. Well, if you want to ask us a question, leave a 5-star review and we will answer them. That question was left a long time ago, so it might take a while, but we'll get to it eventually. So do that and we will answer your question live in a lot of detail sometimes. So I hope you enjoyed that. All right, guys. Well, this has been a downer. Next episode probably be a downer too, but that's the thing we do. We do true crime. As we sit here today, we're like 1 week away from CrimeCon. By the time you hear this, CrimeCon will be over. We'll be back. It will have been amazing. We'll have met so many of you, and we loved every minute of it. But as we sit here today, we're getting really excited to see you. Alice, any thoughts before we sign off?
Oh, I wish there were some great takeaway here, except I don't have anything brilliant to say. But I do think it was worth saying all of the victims' names because you often hear about the sheer number of victims is overwhelming. But each one of those people were loved and had dignity, and their lives were ended senselessly by an incredibly violent person. And so I never think it's a waste of time to go into kind of the detail of what their loved ones were left behind, stuck in this class action, trying to grasp at some sense of justice when there really can be no justice in this life is done. So I guess just to say, I believe in the sanctity of each human person, and they are not just a glob of 22 victims to me, nor to really most people.
Well said, Alice. All right, guys. Well, we'll be back soon, but until then, I'm Brett.
And I'm Alice.
And we are the Prosecutors.
I don't even know what airline I'm flying. I just got back from Iowa. Did I tell you this? I haven't talked to you. I flew through a tornado. Like, I think
Like, literally through a tornado?
Yeah. Like, I mean, it's hard to fly through a tornado,
Yeah.
but it's the entire span. It spanned the entire state of Iowa, so there was no way around it. And we were in the air for 3 hours, so we were running out of gas. And I think the pilot forgot to turn off his mic because he said, F it, let's just go for it.
There you go. There you go.
And then it was the bumpiest ride I've ever been on in my life. And we landed at 3 a.m. in Iowa, and we made it. And when I landed, all the news stations were talking about the tornadoes that had touched down. So I did fly through the storm cell in which the tornadoes were formed.
Gotcha.
And it was not fun.
Hello, and welcome to Pluto Phone. If you know the name of the movie you'd like to see, just stream it for free on Pluto TV, where all your blockbuster favorites are landing all summer long. Catch Anchorman, The Legend of Ron Burgundy.
Fantastic.
Men in Black, 1 through 3.
That's what I'm talking about.
Mean Girls.
Shut up.
Titanic.
I'm the king of the world.
And so much more. For showtimes, press nothing. They're free 24/7.
That is so fetch.
On Pluto TV. Stream now, pay never.